Alright, so lastly, for my final question for the Unit 4 assessment, I received a question stating that classify critical points and intervals of increase and decrease for f of x given, and then I had these three equations, which were f of x, f prime of x, and f second prime of x. So for me, basically, the second derivative wasn't really important for what I was trying to look for because I was classifying the critical points of increase and decrease, and I wasn't going to use the second derivative test, so I chose to not really use the second derivative in my work. So I focused on the first derivative, which was negative 2x over x squared plus 3 all squared. And I used both cases to try to find my critical numbers. So case 1, I made the numerator 0, and I solved for negative 2x, which equals 0, which ended up giving me an x value of 0 for my first critical number. Second case was I said the function does not exist and solved for the denominator. So when doing that, I found that there are no critical numbers, and so the answer to x squared plus 3 all squared equals 0 did not exist because x squared is equal, so because x squared should have equaled negative 3, and then the square root of negative 3 does not exist because it is a negative number and you can't take the square root of negative numbers. So moving on, I only put 0 in for my first derivative chart. I put a value smaller than 0, which was negative 1, and a value larger than 0, which was 1. And I ended up getting that the function increases from negative infinity to 0 and decreases from 0 to infinity. So there is a local max at the point 0, and to solve for the y value of that point, I plugged in 0 to my original equation and ended up getting 1/3 as my local max. So in conclusion, I have that f of x is increasing from negative infinity to 0 and decreasing from 0 to infinity. And you can see here, that's how I got that. And the critical number that I ended up, the points for the local max that I ended up getting was 0, 1/3 which should be on the graph. And when I checked my work over with the on Desmos to see if I was correct, I saw that there was in fact a point at 0 and 0.33 repeated, and 1/3 is 0.33 repeated. So yeah, that is my answer for the final question for the Unit 4 assessment.